If you've been growing succulents for a while, you may have noticed they change colors throughout the year. Sometimes the change can be quite dramatic. The whole plant may be green one day and completely red the next. And so it is quite normal this may concern some of you, especially if you're new to succulents. In this video, we'll have a look at main reasons why succulent leaves and tips go red and establish whether this change is good or bad. Succulent tips and leaves turn red thanks to pigments in the leaves which get activated when a succulent is stressed by the environment or when the seasons change. This is usually quite natural. However, when the stress factors get a bit too intense, the red leaves and tips may be a sign of a succulent in distress and can even end in death. Let's have a look at what these stress factors are and when they can become bad news. One of the biggest influencing factors on red color in succulents is the cold and cold seasons. This is Aeonia Mardi Gras in late spring. And these are the same plants a few months earlier in winter. Pretty much all succulents will get more colorful in the cooler months, and their tips and leaves will be the most intense red, pink, purple or orange you'll see all year. This change in color is natural and nothing to worry about. You can sit back and enjoy the amazing display. However, it is important to remember that many, if not most succulents are not frost tolerant, so freezing cold can actually kill them. The next thing that will make succulent tips and leaves turn red and other colors is the sun. Sun exposure can really activate those red pigments. And here's a good example of that. These pretty little Echeveria rubens have been grown out in full sun. But this rubin has been living in a greenhouse with about 40% shade factor. I've just started growing this Echeveria and was testing how well it can handle being exposed to the rain and full sun. But I've also put the rest of them in a greenhouse just in case the outside lot went bad in the rain or got burned in the sun. I had about 300 rubins and couldn't risk losing them all. What I inadvertently ended up with was a great example of just how much the sun makes succulents colorful. Here's another view of the sunny outdoor rubens versus the shaded greenhouse. The shade factor in the greenhouse was not too drastic and the plants still got enough sun, but if they were even in more shade, they would be almost completely pale. So, if your succulents were to suddenly be exposed to more sun than they're used to, it is likely they'll also get more red or other color. However, do be careful with the sun, especially in summer, and if you live in a climate where temperatures can easily go north of 35 Celsius or 95 Fahrenheit. Strong sun can cause sunburn and can damage succulents. The red color in succulents is often caused when a plant is root bound and doesn't have lots of root space. This Chrysula ovata Hummel Sunset is displaying these red edges because it's been in the same pot for a long time and is a bit stressed by it. The roots have now reached every bit of their space and have nowhere else to go. In this case, the red is a bit of a warning sign. The plant is communicating it needs more space in order to grow. To compare, here's another Hummel Sunset, but this one is planted in the garden with loads of root space. It has a little bit of the red edges going on, but otherwise it's looking pretty green. Was I to restrict the root space of this plant, the edges would start growing red. A lot of people, including myself, sometimes exploit this and often leave their plants in smaller pots on purpose so they are more colorful. Having said that, not all succulents take kindly to being root bound for long, and many can start also losing too many leaves and getting small dark spots on their leaves, especially if they are also exposed to full sun while being root bound. If you leave your succulents too dry, they may turn more red. This Echeveria pulvinata ruby has been growing in a covered greenhouse where I keep succulents that dislike humidity and rain. The leaves are also quite thin now, which is another sign of being thirsty. To compare, here's a pulvinata that was getting more water. The red is faded and the leaves are more plump. I noticed this especially when we're in drought, which in Australia happens quite often. Many succulents get much more colourful due to the lack of rain. But again, this may quickly become a bit of a disaster as succulents do need to be watered. When water is scarce, they can start losing leaves fast. And finally, succulents can get red when their potting medium is either a bit too well draining or too dense. Both can stress the plants into showing colour. I want you to focus on the two pink plants on the right. These are both Echeveria Romeo. I've planted the smaller Romeo into a super fast draining potting mix I made myself. It holds on to just enough water to sustain the plant, but dries very quick. And this is a bit stressful for Romeo, but serves him right as this bugger of a plant can die very suddenly when watered too much. The bigger Romeo is planted in my usual succulent potting mix I use for all my other succulents. His tips are nowhere near as red as the smaller ones. So if you're trying out a new potting mix and your succulent is suddenly displaying more red than usual, it may be because it drains too fast. But this is sometimes a must when you're dealing with plants like Romeo. A dense potting mix such as pure sand or plain soil from the garden can have a similar effect and stress the plant into red leaves and tips, but this is not good. Heavy potting medium can really hamper growth and even kill the more touchy succulents as there is very little air available to the roots. Many hardy succulents will grow, but they may struggle. And that's all the reasons I can think of that will make succulents' leaves and tips turn red. If you have anything to add or want to ask a question, do leave a comment below. If you'd like to learn more about succulents, you can subscribe to our channel or visit our website succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you very much for watching.